Graham Ike is off to a ridiculous start for Gonzaga. Is he on track to earn consensus All-American honors in his final collegiate season?
You are Locked On Zags, your daily podcast on the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, y'all? Welcome into the Locked On Zags podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host and longtime Gonzaga podcaster, Andy Patton, here to bring you news and updates on all things Zag athletics. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets that you can use all across the FanDuel app. So download the app today. Well, a former Gonzaga guard was named to Team USA's World Cup qualifying roster. We're going to discuss that and how a few Zag icons are doing early in the G League season, plus an assessment of how Gonzaga's front court rotation has looked through the first 5 games of the season. A little more of Jalen Warley than we thought. Not that that is a bad thing at all. We'll get to that in the second segment of the show, but we are going to lead kind of doing an abridged version of our season preview episodes. For those of you who are keeping track, who are counting at home, I doubt any of you outside of me had a spreadsheet tracking all of the player preview episodes, but we didn't get to Graham Ike. And ultimately, there was a lot of recruiting news in October. There was a lot of Tyjon Grant Foster news in October, and so we just kind of ran out of shows. And so we don't really need to get into all of Graham's history and the best and worst case scenarios. Really, we're going to take a more deep down look at Graham Ike's All-American candidacy at this point, 5 games in to his final season in a college basketball uniform here with the Gonzaga Bulldogs. It's also good timing, obviously, in the midst of a lull period for Gonzaga in terms of games, and because we recently got news that Graham Ike was named to the Wooden Award preseason top 50 watch list. Of course, the Wooden Award is college basketball's most prestigious honor. It is in its 50th year. So winning the 50th Wooden Award, man, that would be quite an accomplishment. Graham Ike, one of only 2 players who is not in the power conference structure to be on this list. The other one is Robbie Avila from St. Louis. So again, Graham continues to get tons and tons of preseason and now into the season accolades coming into his final season. He was named to the Karl Malone Award watch list for the top power forward in college basketball. He was named to the NABC Player of the Year watch list as well. And there are many other award watch lists and All-American projections that have come out in the last month-ish or so that have Graham Ike on the list, and for good reason. He came into the season having averaged, over 16 and a half points per game in each of his first 2 seasons in a Gonzaga uniform. That's after averaging nearly 20 points per game in his lone healthy season at Wyoming. It was very clear that he was going to be the team's kind of focal point offensively this season, and we'll talk more in the second segment about Braden Huff entering the starting lineup and what that has done for Ike's role and for Gonzaga overall. But again, there was no real mystery that Graham Ike was going to be a part of this conversation, this national narrative coming into the year. And the computers agree. The computer models, which tend to always favor Gonzaga more than the AP voters, also really have a lot of positive things to say about Graham Ike. Currently, Ken Pomeroy's website, KenPom, has Graham among the top 10 players in college basketball. He was as high as number 4 coming off of Gonzaga's game against Arizona State, where he had 20 points and 9 rebounds and really kind of willed Gonzaga to a win in that kind of sloppy, gritty performance on the road in Tempe last Friday. And so Graham was at number 4 in the KenPom top player rankings at the time. He has slipped to 10. It's not really because he played poorly against Southern Utah. It was statistically his weakest game of the season, but that's only because Gonzaga just did not need to play him very much in that game. He played just 21 minutes. He still scored 13 points. I think he still had 5 rebounds. He was pretty efficient. Again, we're going to see games like that occasionally from Graham. And again, there's not a single person affiliated with Gonzaga who's going to be bummed out about a 72-point victory like they had against Southern Utah. So no issues there for Graham. Granted, more performances like that Again, whether the performance is actually bad or not, it certainly was not. But more games where he doesn't get to play 30-ish minutes or 28 plus minutes could actually impact his ability to be an All-American, which is a little unfair because not needing to play in games that Gonzaga is winning by 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, in part because of how well you played early in the game. It's a little unfair to punish a player for that. But again, if another player has better statistics than Graham, it's going to be, that's a tough nuance for voters and people who pick All-Americans to really be able to parse out in those kinds of conversations. Again, right now, Graham Ike, number 10 at KenPom's player rankings. He has won 4 out of 5 game MVP awards for Gonzaga. So in all 5 of Gonzaga's games that they have played, the MVP award for KenPom has gone to a Gonzaga player. 4 times it was Graham Ike. In the game against Southern Utah, it was Mario St. Superi. Graham is one of just 6 players that has 4 MVP awards so far on the season. Joining him is Minnesota's Cade Tyson, Chase Ross at Marquette, Bennett Sturts at Iowa, Ibuka Okori from Stanford, freshman over there playing really well, and then Caleb Wilson at North Carolina. Evan Miyakawa's website, evanmiya.com, has Graham Ike as the 7th best player in the country using his Bayesian performance rating data. That would be behind Braden Smith at Purdue, Cam Boozer at Duke, JT Toppin at Texas Tech, Yaxel Lendeberg from Michigan, and Taman Lipsey at Iowa State, and then Duke center Patrick Ngangba as well. So the question is, will Graham Ike earn All-American honors? He has yet to do so in his career. It's not unprecedented to see a player get All-American honors in their final year, especially if they have been consistently good. We saw that with like Janai Broome last year at Auburn. Obviously, he very much deserved it. It was not like a career accolade the way that, old actors or actresses get an Oscar nominee because they've had a great career, so you got to throw them an award. It's not exactly like that, but for Graham, he's been consistently excellent for many years now. And if this Gonzaga team plays like they are capable of, I think he will be an All-American. And that is, I think, a key part of this conversation. The last 2 years, Gonzaga has not been up to par. 5 seed in the NCAA tournament 2 years ago, 8 seed in the NCAA tournament last year, did not win the WCC regular season either of those years. And that is unusual. And I think it impacted Graham's ability to be an All-American. And it impacted Graham's, it's the reason that Graham didn't win WCC Player of the Year either of those years, instead going to Augustus Marcellonis, because St. Mary's won the WCC. I think for Graham Ike to be an All-American this year, Gonzaga needs to win the WCC. They need to consistently be in the top 15, top 10 of the AP poll. And they need to be, in a position where at the end of the year, they're a 2 seed, 3 seed, 4 seed, 1 seed, somewhere in that conversation. If they're anything lower than that, I think that will impact whether Graham's an All-American. Whether it should or not is perhaps a conversation for another time. But I do think it is an extremely relevant part of Graham's kind of path to potentially becoming an All-American. You look statistically, we'll use Filip Petrusev as an example. He was an All-American in that 2019-20 season. He averaged 17.5 points, 8 boards, 1.5 assists per game. Graham's better than that. His numbers are already better than that right now. His numbers are likely going to be at or better than that when the season finishes. Those are numbers pretty similar to what he's put up the last couple of years, and he's playing more minutes per game this season. So the odds of him finishing somewhere around 18, 19 points per game, 9+ rebounds per game, 3 assists per game, and that's pretty close to where he's at now. And even if those dip a little bit, there's still going to be better numbers than what Petrusev put up. But Petrusev was an All-American not just because of his numbers, but because Gonzaga was going to be a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament before it ended up getting canceled. If Gonzaga is anywhere near that conversation this year, even as a 2 or a 3 seed, I think Graham's a near lock to be an All-American. And he's got some competition. I think some of the competition has died down a little bit. No more Janai Broome. We mentioned him. No more Hunter Dickinson, who was in college basketball for 10 years. No more Ryan Kalkbrenner, who was also in college basketball for a really long time over at Creighton. But there's still some great bigs. Zubi Ejiofor at St. John's, one of my favorite big men in the country, averaging about 18 and 7. Also averaging 3 assists per game. Terrace Reed at UConn has been a master. I'm recording this before their game against Arizona, but coming into that game, Reed is averaging 20 points and over 9 rebounds rebounds per game. You have Nate Biddle at Oregon averaging 19 and 10 with 3 blocks. Trey Kaufman-Renn only played 2 games so far at Purdue, but averaging 18 and 15 with 3 assists. Flory Badunga, 16.5 points, 7.5 boards, over 2 blocks per game for Kansas. Looked very good in their loss to Duke. Speaking of Duke, Patrick Ngongba is also playing really well, 11.5 points, 7 boards, 2.5 assists per game. Lots of very good players, lots of very good. I picked front court players in particular to kind of compare them across to Ike, but Ike's numbers, which we'll talk about more in detail in the second segment, are on par with those guys. 17 points, 9 boards. He's been great. And I think if Gonzaga does what they have appeared to this point very capable of doing this year, Graham Ike will finish this season earning much deserved All-American honors in his final collegiate season. Well, folks, Gonzaga's front court duo of Ike and Braden Huff has been outstanding in the early going, although they're playing a lot more small ball than I think we anticipated. We're going to talk more about that, what it means for Gonzaga, coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, college basketball and the NBA are back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And even if you missed the start of a game, if you just want to ride out the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who's going to score next to predicting those fourth quarter comebacks. And you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay to get a shot at a bigger payout. It makes every game more exciting, especially when your team's the one making that late push. Gonzaga has the second highest odds to win the Players Era Festival in Las Vegas next week. They're at plus 500, only trailing Houston, the Cougs, who are at plus 310. That means Gonzaga's got better odds than Alabama, than Tennessee, than Auburn, than Kansas, many other teams in this very loaded field taking place in Vegas next week. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, folks, segment 2, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags, still part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and the #1 sports podcasting network. And we are still talking about Gonzaga's front court. We talked about Graham Ike more specifically in the first segment, his quest to become an All-American for the first time in his career in his final collegiate season. And now what I want to do is kind of take a bit broader look at what we've seen overall from Gonzaga's front court through the first 5 games of the season. This was a huge storyline coming into the year, as we knew based on the last 3 games of last season that Gonzaga was going to come into this year starting Graham Ike and Braden Huff together. Those 2 guys spent the majority of the last 2 years playing not alongside each other. Graham was the starter, Braden was the backup, and most of the time, one of those 2 players was on the floor, but very rarely were they on the floor at the same time. And then last year, in the final 3 games of the season, which was Gonzaga's win over St. Mary's in the WCC championship, it was their win over Georgia in the first round of the NCAA tournament, and then their narrow loss to Houston in the round of 32. In those 3 games, Gonzaga started Ike and Huff together, brought both Ben Gregg and Michael Ajayi off the bench. After the season, we know that Ben Gregg was out of eligibility. He's now playing professionally in France. Michael Ajayi hit the transfer portal, landed at Butler, and Gonzaga didn't bring any front court players in with the exception of 3-star freshman Parker Jefferson, who is now redshirting this season. And then we kind of knew, okay, they're going to have to go with these 2 guys in the starting lineup. We figured Ismaila Diani was going to be the 3rd big, and we kind of weren't sure who else was going to play. We knew Gonzaga was probably going to go small, but who was it going to be? We talked about Jalen Warley, and then we talked about Steele Venters, and now it's become very clear that player is Jalen Warley. And in fact, Warley is not only playing power forward minutes, he is the 3rd big on this roster, playing much more than Ismaila Diani. And we're going to get to that in a second, but I want to look at just from a production and minutes per game played for Ike and Huff through the first 5 games of the season compared to their roles last year. And it's a lot of what we expected to see. Graham is playing 26 minutes per game. That is about 2 minutes more per game than he's ever played in a Gonzaga uniform. So he is playing more minutes than ever. Same with Braden Huff. Obviously not a surprise for Huff. He's playing 21.5 minutes per game. That's 5 minutes more per game than he played in either of his first 2 seasons at Gonzaga. Ike is averaging 17 points, 9.2 rebounds, and 2.4 assists. Last year, he averaged 17.3 points, so he is right on track with that. The 9.2 rebounds far exceeds his previous career high in a Gonzaga uniform. He averaged about 10 boards in his lone starting healthy season at Wyoming. And then his 2.4 assists is far and away a career high. In fact, last year was Ike's career high in assists, and it was 1.4. So he is averaging one full more assist per game, again, through just 5 games this season for Gonzaga. Ike is also posting an effective field goal percentage of 62.3, which is the highest of his career, as we would expect, his 44.4% mark from 3, which is spearheaded by his really strong three-point shooting performance against Creighton in the 3rd game of the season. Meanwhile, for Huff, averaging 14.8 points, 5 rebounds, and just over a half an assist per game, far and away his career high in points and rebounds again. He was coming off the bench playing not even 17 minutes per game, so we would expect those numbers to be up. However, Huff is actually averaging about half as many assists. Again, we're talking about a 5-game sample size, but he has not been distributing the ball. He has not been passing the ball very much, really at all. We kind of thought that Huff might end up being more of an offensive hub for Gonzaga, the way that Drew Timme was towards the end of his career, with Graham kind of playing more of the traditional center role closer to the rim. And that it's kind of been flipped from what we originally thought. Based on the stats, based on obviously just watching each of these games, we've seen Graham be more of a three-point shooter. We've seen him he's taking close to 2 attempts per game, knocked all 4 of them down in that Creighton game, and he's distributing the ball more, whereas Huff is scoring at a super highly efficient clip. He's 67% on his 2-pointers, which is way higher than he was last year. He's only shooting 16% from 3, but that's 1 of 6. So what we've seen is Graham Ike is around the perimeter more. He is passing the ball more. And Braden Huff is scoring more around the rim, is rebounding much more than he used to previously. He's averaging 5 rebounds per game. That is 1.5 rebounds more than he averaged last year. So we've kind of seen that Graham is taking on the more kind of traditional power forward role, playing away from the rim, being able to space the floor, looking to make those entry passes, where Huff is playing the more traditional 5 role. Some may have anticipated that that's how this was going to go. I thought maybe it would look a little bit different. But the main thing that has been different and that has really worked to Gonzaga's favor this year is that they're playing a lot of small ball lineups. And again, the idea of Jalen Warley or Steel Venters or somebody being kind of the 4th break glass in case of emergency big, while Ismaila Diani gobbles up most of the minutes, has not been the case. Jalen Warley is playing 21 minutes per game, and he is almost exclusively playing those minutes alongside one of the 2 bigs, but not both of the 2 bigs. Jalen Warley plays at power forward with either Graham Ike or Braden Huff, or at times Ismaila Diani playing the 5, but he does not play when 2 of those guys are on the floor at the same time. He is very, very distinctly a power forward on this Gonzaga team. And I say that distinctly in the sense that that is the role he's playing within the lineup. But what makes Jalen Warley so incredibly valuable for Gonzaga is that he offers so much versatility in what he's capable of doing. Jalen Warley is playing the power forward, but the reason you may not think Jalen Warley is playing the power forward is because he's guarding players like Mo Odom. He is guarding Nick Graves, the point guard at Creighton. He is playing defensively. He's not often guarding the other big man. You know, he might get switched onto them and things like that. But if the other team's playing 2 bigs, you'll see like Steel Venters is, if he's on the floor, he's guarding the other big. Or they'll toss Ty and Grant Foster on the other big. And Jalen Warley will be guarding a guard. He will be playing out on the perimeter. And offensively, he looks a little bit more like a power forward in that regard. But Gonzaga's continuous motion offense, everybody's moving around. It's a little bit hard to tell exactly what role they're playing. Warley's not a 3-point shooter. He has not attempted a 3 this year. Would not shock me if he attempts less than 5 threes on the season. That's just not his role. But he is relentless at attacking the rim. He's a phenomenal offensive rebounder. And his ability to allow Gonzaga to play small has really worked in favor of the 2 other bigs, Ike and Huff, and has taken a ton of pressure off of them defensively. In fact, Graham Ike spoke about this after the game against Creighton. I asked him about Jalen Warley's impact on the team, and he said, quote, Jalen's phenomenal for us. He's a Swiss Army knife, in my opinion. He can do it all. It just makes defense so much easier for me, whether it's ball screen coverage or covering the gaps. Whatever you need him to do, he's there, and that's why I love and appreciate him. And I love this quote from Graham. And I'll say too, when he was saying it, he said, he just makes defense so much easier for me. And then he kind of paused and he looked, and Braden Huff was sitting next to him, and he said, he makes it easier for us. Like all of us on this team collectively are better defenders because of Jalen Warley. That was the kind of message that we got from Graham after that game. And it's true. It's so clear that Jalen brings so much impact. He keeps guards in front of him. He does not, that takes pressure off of Graham and Braden to have to protect the rim and to have to try to protect the rim while avoiding fouls, which is something that frankly, both of those players have struggled with throughout their multiple years in college basketball. It wasn't magically something that we expected to get better this year. The easiest way to curtail those guys getting in foul trouble is to put somebody out on the guards who's not going to let them get by them. And that is what Jalen Warley does. That is what, Emmanuel Nicente and Tyron Grant-Foster and Mario St-Superi do as well. Warley is not the only good perimeter defender on this team. That's what makes this team so dang good on that end of the floor. That's why they are a top 3 team in adjusted defensive efficiency, according to KenPom. But Warley being the 4 and being able to do that and prevent the opposing team from, they try to get you into switches. And if Warley's guarding Mo Odom or Nick Graves or whomever, like that, and then you switch with another play, like it just makes it so much more difficult for the opposing team when Warley is capable of guarding anybody on the floor. And that's what he provides to this team. And again, Warley's playing 21 minutes per game in all 5 games. Diani's playing 8 minutes per game in just 4 games. He did not play in that Arizona State game. Diani's not really a part of the rotation right now. And it's a good thing for Gonzaga that they do not need him to be, because he's still developing. We talked about this before the season. Diani played 66 total minutes last year. 18 of those minutes came in that game against Santa Clara, where he was excellent. This is sort of like a redshirt freshman year for him. Like the development that you typically see between freshman and sophomore years, he's just still behind the sticks on that. Not because he's developing slowly, but because he didn't play the traditional amount of time that you would expect him to play as a freshman. And for reference, Davis Vogel has played half as many minutes this season as Ismaila Diani played all of last year. Davis Vogel has only played in 4 games. And again, he has only, people want to see him on the floor more. So Diani is really kind of going through a second freshman year, it feels like right now. I think we'll see I don't know if his playing time will tick up later in the year, but he'll get more, he'll start to look more fluid and more comfortable within the set, I think, as the season goes on. But the fact that Warley has been able to contribute what he has defensively and offensively has taken so much pressure off those other 2 bigs and made their life so much easier, both offensively and defensively. Lots of great matchups still for Gonzaga's front court this year. Alabama, the next game for the Zags on Monday. They're known more for their guards, but Taylor Bull-Bowen and Aiden Sherrill are both 6'10", both play big minutes for this team. Obviously, UCLA, Xavier Booker, transfer from Michigan State's been good. Tyler Bilodeau and Eric Daly, returners from last year. Oregon has Nate Biddle, who's one of the best centers in college basketball, as well as Sean Stewart and KJ Evans. And even St. Mary's, 2 guys over 7 feet tall because they breed them like that for this Gales program. Harry Wessels and Andrew McKeever, both been very good so far. Paulus Morauskas is a 6'9", very good rebounding big. Like, this team is big, and they're going to present some matchup issues for Gonzaga, but the fact that they have this kind of size and somebody in Jalen Warley who can defend so many different positions really has been a huge boost for this team on both ends of the floor. And we've seen that play out so far through 5 games. Well, folks, USA Basketball announced their 12-man roster for the World Cup qualifiers, and a former Zag is on the squad. We're going to talk about that and give some updates on some Zags in the G League coming up here in just a second. All right, folks, segment 3, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags podcast, closing out the show with some fun updates for some professional Zags. We're starting with Ryan Woolridge. Ryan Woolridge was named to the USA Basketball qualifying team, the 12-man roster for the World Cup qualifiers. 12 players on the team, 6 of them do not have previous USA Basketball experience. Woolridge is among that group. The training camp for this begins November 21st. So as you're listening to this tomorrow, potentially, it'll be in Miami for a 5-day training camp period. Their first game in the qualifiers is on November 28th in Nicaragua at 5:10 p.m. Pacific time. Their next game will be in College Park, Georgia on December 1st at 4:10 p.m. Pacific time. Both games will be available on Courtside 1891. It is free to watch if you are interested in watching this team compete. There are 80 total teams or 80 total countries competing for 32 spots in the 2027 FIBA World Cup, which will take place in Qatar. 80 teams competing, 32 will make it. Team USA will be among them. They always are. They typically win their events. They win their regions pretty much every single time. Very, very cool opportunity for Ryan Woolridge, a native of Mansfield, Texas, to get an opportunity to wear the red, white, and blue, represent his country, and get to play with a very good group, a very talented group of players. Woolridge currently playing with the Windy City Bulls in the NBA G League. He's played 3 games so far with the Bulls, averaging 9 points and 6.3 assists per game. Not his first season in the G League. A couple years ago, he played with the Oklahoma City Blue, played 11 games with them in the G League, but he's also spent time overseas professionally in Germany, in Greece, and in Hungary. And typically when USA Basketball puts together these rosters, they look for players, if they have previous USA basketball experience, that always helps. But they look for players who have played overseas, who've played college basketball, who've played the G League. Like, they typically want people who have done all 3 of those things if they can find them, because the experience playing with FIBA rules, which is typically what you see overseas, is really valuable in the sense that you're comfortable with those rules and the hand checking and the various things that a lot of American players who haven't played under those rules are struggle to adjust to. And on the flip side, similar to some of the struggles we've seen with Mario Saint-Superi, who seems to be moving past those struggles with his great game on Monday. But like, those are the kind of reasons that you see players and former Gonzaga players like David Stockton and Jeremy Pargo, who have represented Team USA, because of those same things. They've played in the G League, they've played overseas, they have a variety of different experiences professionally that allows them to be in a good position to be on this roster. Ryan Woolridge spent 1 year at Gonzaga, the 2019-20 season, that same aforementioned year we mentioned with Filip Petrusev earning All-American honors. Ryan Woolridge averaged about 10 points, 4.5 boards, a little over 4 assists, 1.5 steals per game in his lone season with Gonzaga. He was a transfer from North Texas, spent 3 years with the Mean Green before coming to Gonzaga as a graduate transfer. Again, kind of gets a little forgotten in the Gonzaga basketball history, I think in big part because he didn't get to play in the NCAA tournament, because there was no NCAA tournament. That was the year that COVID canceled the big dance. Gonzaga was going to make it. They had already won the WCC tournament. They were expected to get a 1 seed in the field. So really a huge bummer that Woolridge and Admon Gilder, for that matter, did not get to play in the tournament that year. This roster for Team USA, by the way, not only featuring Ryan Woolridge, but also former Pepperdine forward Kessler Edwards, who was a second-round pick in the NBA draft. Jaden Shackelford is a name Zags fans might remember because he went off against Gonzaga when he played at Alabama. Nice reminder of that Gonzaga-Alabama game in Seattle as we get the Crimson Tide next week. Couple other G League updates here to close out the show. Ryan Nembhard is out for a couple of weeks, suffered a knee injury 2 days ago as I'm recording this. So he's going to be out for a couple of weeks. Big bummer for Nembhard. He's played in 5 NBA games so far with the Dallas Mavericks after signing a 2-way contract. 3.2 points and just under 2 assists per game in those 9 minutes per contest, but he only played 1 G League game, but he was incredible in that 1 G League game. 26 points, 10 assists, and a pair of rebounds. That sounds like the Ryan Nembhard that we know. No surprise to see him have such an excellent impact, even if it was just 1 G League game. Hopefully he's back in action sooner rather than later. Some other G League action to talk about here. Drew Timme has been incredible, and nobody's surprised. Nobody is surprised. Drew Timme, of course, was one of the best players in the G League last year, signed that contract with the Brooklyn Nets, averaged 12 points with the Nets across, I think, 10 games or so in Brooklyn, was a dominant force for them in the Summer League this year, but ended up getting cut at the last minute, signed with the South Bay Lakers in the G League, the affiliate, of course, of the Los Angeles Lakers. And so far in 4 games, Drew Timme is averaging 34 minutes per game, 28 points per game, 6.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, and 1.5 steals. He was the G League Player of the Week last week, and no surprise. And look, with Drew, it's not shocking to see why he dominates at this level. He dominated at the collegiate level, and if you are a good enough defensive big man that you have any ability to slow down Drew Timme, any player who is 6'10 or taller who is at all capable of guarding Drew Timme, guess what? They're already in the NBA. because post defense and rim protectors are so valuable in the NBA that anybody who has even a chance of being able to slow down Drew, they're not at this level. So the guys who are at this level in the G League, a lot of them are players kind of like Drew, where they're good offensive players, good hubs, but they're not good on the defensive side of the ball. So Drew's just cooking every single one of them. And that is why he's averaging, again, it's a 4-game sample, but this is pretty much what he did last year in the G League as well. 28 points per game, just been absolutely phenomenal. I know he will get another chance in the NBA this season. I don't know when, I don't know if it'll be with LA or somebody else, but he will get another opportunity. But right now, I think he's having a great time because not only is he killing it in South Bay, but he's doing it with one of his best friends, Anton Watson, also playing for the South Bay Lakers, also starting for this team. Both players have started 4 games. Drew's playing 34 minutes a game. Watson's playing 28 and a half minutes per game. So you watch a South Bay Lakers team, it's going to look a little bit like a Gonzaga game from the last couple of years. Watson averaging about 9 points, 4 boards, 2 assists, and 1.3 blocks and 1.3 steals per game, doing the same things that Anton always does, making an impact on both ends of the floor. Malachi Smith, also in the G League, played 1 game so far with the Long Island Nets, had 6 points and 3 assists. And then we got Nolan Hickman. Nolan Hickman, the 5th pick in the 2025 G League draft by the Capital City Go-Go, the G League affiliate of the Washington Wizards. And they haven't played any official games yet. The G League season just getting started. But in 2 preseason games, Nolan Hickman played about 7 minutes per game, did not score in either games, but did have an assist and a rebound. I'm very interested to see what his role looks like with Capital City and in the G League. He seems very capable of being a high-level scorer, high-level shooter, but I'm curious if he's going to be given the opportunity to play point guard, which is what he really needs to prove at the G League level. I think that they'd love to see him shoot well. They'd love to see him look good defensively, but for him to actually make it into the NBA, he needs to prove that he can be a playmaker, a facilitator, a legitimate point guard. And honestly, he didn't show that at Gonzaga. That doesn't mean it's not going to be there in some capacity, but it's something that without it, I think it's going to be very hard for him to do anything other than be a player in the G League and kind of peak at that potential stop. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up for me today here on the Locked On Zags podcast. Thank you so much to those of you who have made this show your first listen or your first watch of the day. We got one more show this week, getting you ready for the Players Era Festival. Then next week, we're getting you ready specifically for that matchup against Alabama on Monday night. And then, of course, the matchup against Maryland on Tuesday. And we'll see how the rest of the week shakes out from there. Thanks again, folks. Have a fantastic rest of your day. And, of course, as always, go Zags.